Welcome to Just Relationships, the show that offers you concrete ways to make your relationships better. Whether it's your boss, your spouse, your children, or your friends, the quality of your relationships in life directly affects how you feel about yourself and the success you achieve. Your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer, a psychotherapist, telecoach, author, and seminar leader, will interview top experts to help you learn to manage this essential part of your life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Duffy Spencer.
Welcome to Just Relationships. I am very pleased to let you know that I have invited back David Alexander, who is a psychotherapist specializing in communication and team building for individuals and couples and organizations. And David Alexander has written an ebook, short ebook, he emphasizes, called Escaping from Freedom, which is a treatise on Erich Fromm's book of 1941, Escape from Freedom. And last week, David and I looked into why some people prefer authoritarian leaders. What is that about rather than democratic leaders? And looking at that, not only has this been a trend in the United States, but it's a worldwide trend. And I would just throw in, David, that in times of uncertainty, and there was a wonderful book written about this by a sociologist a year ago or so, and I don't remember the name of it, but I'll describe it, where she said that in times of great uncertainty that people want to have very tight and rigid rules. And when people feel safe and centered and that choices are a good thing to have, the rules loosen up. And I think that this is a very, very important part of looking at authoritarianism and how so many people are attracted to it. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's it's another way to talk about safety is the connecting thread here, because when people don't feel clear who they want to be and who they are, and they're, we talked last week about true self versus false self. When it's hard to feel your presence and connect to people, everything feels unsafe. The world is a dangerous place. And then we try to have rules and procedures and strong leaders to take the place of our own inner confidence that I feel safe in the world. Things are going to be okay. And I trust myself. I trust other people. So when those things get diminished, the urge towards authoritarianism and discipline, rigidity starts to take over.
Yeah. The thing that I don't understand about that is that the authoritarian leaders are not known for their gentle touch. They're not known for being kind and caring and compassionate. I mean, what we said last week about the pull is that I identify with a part of the population and the rest are ne'er-do-wells. So I will take care of you. If you are loyal to me, if I have a following, then you are safe. If you are not loyal to me, then you get massacred.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's it.
Well, maybe we can look at the nonviolent communication and what that means in this bigger picture of society.
Good.
How do we support?
We ended the last show with you saying, our sphere of influence is within ourselves, our point of power. And so we only can control ourselves. So tell us what nonviolent communication is and how it can help us in this endeavor.
We can also talk about nonverbal communication. That's a whole good topic. That's a good topic too.
Yes, it is.
Sure. So nonviolent communication it's a great framework for communication. I had not heard about it until a couple of years ago. And as soon as I started reading a couple of the books by the originator, I found it was really a lively, honest approach towards how we connect to other people.
Marshall Rosenberg?
Marshall Rosenberg, yes.
Yeah, okay.
He died about 9 or 10 years ago, but there's actually a movement around the world and lots of classes and meetings and so on. But one of the phrases he uses is life-enhancing communication versus life-alienating communication. So when we ask someone how they're feeling or say, how would you like to sit down and talk about this? Let's hear I want to hear what you have to say. There's so many different aspects to it, but how do you make people feel important and valued and listen to them? And if somebody does something you disagree with, let's say you have a child who throws a dish on the ground and breaks it because he's angry for the moment. What do? Do you scream, hit the child, and send them away? Or do you find a way to say how you're feeling? I'm feeling upset. I'm wondering what's going on with you? You broke the dish and that's not like you. What's going on? I feel a little nervous now seeing all that. So you use everything as an opportunity for connection. It may sound a little bit weak. Now, if you have a juvenile delinquent or a violent criminal, you can't use that approach immediately. You have to implement other restraints but even punishment in nonviolent communication is not punishment. It's protective restraint. In other words, if somebody's about to kill someone or themselves, you don't let them do that. Not because you want to punish or make them suffer, but because society or they need protection from those impulses. So it's all about...
That's a great term, protective restraint. Yes.
Yeah, no attitude of punishment making them suffer.
Right.
So and that goes from top to bottom of all aspects of relating. How do you keep a relationship and communication life enhancing? I'll stop because I know I'm talking a lot.
No. And what I know about Marshall Rosenberg, who I read not so recently, but the idea of finding the underlying needs. What are the real needs that a person has, and to honor them, and that people are not self-disclosing. Last week you talked about a culture where, emotions are not honored, and this week as well. And so the idea of people not even necessarily knowing what their needs are, they don't feel entitled, deserving, so they don't even speak a language of a language of self-disclosure. I need, I would like, would you please, can you help me? They speak in you statements, they attack, they accuse, you didn't, you never. So am I correct in my memory of the central point of finding out the underlying needs for nonviolent communication?
Yes, but there's a yes, but here.
Yeah.
You can't always talk about those needs. The person has to be ready and willing to do that. Okay. Now, you may get to that point with the right approach. You may get them to start, when they're aggressive and name calling, for example, that's really expressing pain. And they're doing it in a way that's not normally very productive. But if you look and tune into it, if somebody is calling names or even being violent, it's a pain and they're trying to meet their need to put an end to the pain. So how do you handle it? Of course, you don't let anyone get hurt.
Yeah.
Let's say a more mild example, somebody's refusing to talk. You might just say, look, I can see you don't want to talk right now. That's fine. But if you do want to talk, tomorrow or the next day, I'm open to it. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And you really mean that. You're not forcing other people to do what you want. And it's like surfing, which I've never done. But when you're riding a wave, you can imagine you're constantly adjusting, feeling what's under, where the energy is. You have to constantly adjust, just like skiing or any of those other activities. Daily life is really like that. How do you connect to different kinds of people with different needs, different expression? And I'll say one more thing.
Bike riding, right? You remember your first two-wheeler? I remember that so well. And then eventually you just ride it, and somehow you stay riding because you are so subtly making those adjustments. Sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to give another example.
That's right. Maybe that's more common, more relatable example than surfing, especially here on the East Coast. But I was going to say, like, a fundamental principle is kindness. Your idea is to use life-enhancing communication. Sometimes that means being silent, not arguing. Sometimes it means saying, I see how you're thinking about it. It's an interesting thing. I'll have to look into it closer. I have a slightly different opinion, but it's all, what are you really feeling inside? As long as you can respect and understand the other person's viewpoint and why they're saying it and doing it, even if it's misguided action and misguided views, you have to understand that everyone wants to be happy. Everyone wants to be understood and respected. And
yes,
everyone has a right to those things, but people take up tragic approaches to getting that. And they can throw away a lifetime through bad choices. But it's a tragic, sad result. Everyone wants the same things.
Right. The golden rule, right? It's safe to say, even though we talk about something called the platinum rule, which is treat others as they would want to be treated, the golden rule, treat others as you would want to be treated. It's safe to say that we all want to be treated with respect and dignity and kindness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to be loved and to have a meaning, for our lives to mean something. Maslow has the pyramid of hierarchy of needs, but I think that was never quite right, because he put survival as the most fundamental need. But if that was the case, why do people give up their lives for something? Right. They'll give up a life for a loved one or for something they believe in. Not to say that's easy, but people do that. Because the highest need is to feel you have a meaning that goes beyond yourself. Either I'm with my loved one or my nation or my kids, somebody, I'm there for them. And that's meaning. I'm willing to give up my life for something I believe in. And that's a deep, deep need.
Yes, well put. Yeah, even above survival at times, although many people say, the hell with the meaning, I want to live.
Then in that case, they haven't found a clear enough meaning at that moment.
Or right. I'm also remembering the Andes survivors in the soccer team from the book Alive that was made into a movie, how they needed to eat their dead comrades. Mm-hmm. to stay alive. And what the meaning they gave to that was, this is like we're eating the body of Christ. We're having a communion. Mm. And that was the way they were able to cannibalize.
I didn't know that.
Their comrades.
Yeah. I mean, there's a line that, we don't have to go into it in depth, but I haven't read that book. But there is that line between when you kill the weak ones so you can eat them versus.
Oh no! These people had already died.
Right. So
they were buried already. They were frozen, and they thawed them out. Yes. No, they didn't. I know what you mean about killing people. Yes, this was not that.
Right. And anyway, I think most of us don't face those situations, right? but we're facing it in some other ways where I'll tell you, this is what you just brought up is very relevant because at every moment we're choosing between physical survival and spiritual or emotional survival. Like, are we going to focus on the worldly profits? Are we going to do business and screw everyone over so I can have more money and a bigger house and a better car? Or am I going to talk to my employees, make sure they have decent incomes, think about what's good for them? Because truly, corporations say we're all a family. Because fire everyone. As soon as the bottom, the quarter isn't as good as they thought, and they fire everyone without a word. But up until that moment, and I actually witnessed that happen 20 years ago in a situation I was working in. I was not one of the people fired. I was on a contract, but everyone was a family. We're family. We're doing this together. We're building a big organization. And then suddenly they decided to go a different direction. They fired everyone. So that's not the way to make a better society. It's hypocrisy.
Yes, I'm reminded of when Michael Moore did that documentary he called something like Stealing Great Ideas, or something of how we can take on the best ideas of other countries. And in Italy, how they were interviewed, and they said, the corporate owners said, we have enough, because the interviewers were asking, how could you have them earn so much and not work terribly long hours? And they
Beautiful. Said, that's a great example.
Yeah, we have enough. We have enough. We can share what we have.
Mm-hmm.
We have a good life.
I think that's a terrific example. And I'm glad, you're bringing up really good examples that I haven't heard of, and I appreciate that a lot. In this case, you're highlighting capitalism is good. That's fine. But what we have oftentimes is runaway, out of control, dog-eat-dog capitalism. And that's not a good thing.
Oh, okay. Let's hear more about that.
Well,
there can be more humane versions of capitalism.
Well, you described it in I guess that was Italy.
Right.
Where the owner says, I have enough, because he's satisfied as a person. His life is okay. He has a nice income. He doesn't have to squeeze the last drop out of everyone else who he could do.
Got it.
Right.
So that greed has so much to do with prestige, the need for status and prestige, which goes back to the need to be seen and recognized and seen as I am important. I matter. I matter.
And Marshall Rosenberg calls that a tragic attempt to get, I forget the exact word he used, tragic attempt to get validation. I'll use the word validation.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well said.
In other words, this thing about getting more and more money and squeezing other people is a tragic attempt to make oneself feel better. Let's just put it in easy language right there.
Yes,
tragic attempt because it's not successful. Then you have drug use, you have misery, you have divorces, you have all kinds of problems. When people can instead be at peace in themselves and treat other people well, there's a lot less likelihood of any of those things happening.
Absolutely. So tell us more about nonviolent communication. And you teach that, you help people save their relationships because you teach them how to use it. It's
especially helpful with couples because, most of the couples I've worked with, pretty much all of them, they are, they're not screaming at each other. They're not at that kind of really degraded, damaged relationship, but they're not doing so well either. And a lot of the times what's going on is, without realizing it, they're blaming the other person or defending themselves. Those are two sides of a similar coin. And it's really like a retraining when instead of saying, you never listen to me, you say things like, I'm feeling alone now. I would like to be heard. I don't feel heard right now. And and again, internally, you're not saying, you're an idiot. You're not listening to me, you jerk. And then using fancy language. It's really a heartfelt understanding of how I can improve this relationship is by expressing my feelings and being vulnerable and open and allowing the other person to be vulnerable and open. And then you can start to come back together.
Those two things, as St. Francis of Assisi said in his prayer, may I listen first, seek first to understand, and only then to be understood, which is really counterintuitive because the average person wants to be understood and to we're not saints, right? So, but I want to understand you first, and then I'd like to be understood. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. I think another way it's experienced is I'm in such a rush to get my point out there,
right,
that I don't have time to listen to the other person.
Right.
Right.
So just to boil it down for people, we're looking at the difference between I and you statements. I, self-disclosing, you statements, accusatory, as you modeled. I feel alone. I'd like to be heard right now. And what many people who are not used to this, and as you say, we live in a defaulting, scapegoating, blaming society, is that they think they're making an I statement. It would be like, I feel that you are a screw up, right?
Yep, that happens.
A disguised you statement, and they think that they're doing it right. I'm only expressing my feelings here. I feel you're a screw up. But in order to make an I statement, we have to know ourselves. As Fritz Perls, who co-founded Gestalt with his wife Laura, said that everything is self-awareness, right? It starts with awareness. And how do we get awareness if we have this myth of infallibility, that I'm not allowed to be fallible, so I can't own when I've made a mistake?
That's because some image will be damaged, but we shouldn't care so much about the image. We should care about the reality. Right.
Good point. So tell us more about how we can learn about nonverbal communication, and also, David Alexander, tell people how they can get in touch with you if they're looking for couple counseling, individual counseling, or for you to come into corporations or organizations and help people with leadership, communication, conflict resolution, team building.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, especially because you do some of the same things.
Yes.
So I really appreciate that. Well, the website, and of course my phone number is there. The website is insightenergy.com. Insight, not inside. Occasionally people hear that wrong. Insightenergy.com. And you're free to call or send an email from there. And you can look around and see, how I work. I've been working more recently with leaders, less so with team building. I did that last year, or a couple of years, a year and a half ago. I was doing team building. More recently, I've been doing a lot of leadership work, helping people communicate with their staff and their partners, in some cases, more effectively. So it's a more human relationship, not just goal-oriented or transaction-oriented, because that works when everything's going smoothly and well. It can work pretty well. It's still not a lot of fun. You're just there to do the business and run around. And then it falls apart as soon as there's some kind of stress or difference of opinion. So what you really want to do to have a long-lasting, successful organization or relationship as a couple is build the personal relation strongly, so you know each other and you care about each other and you feel like we're really in this together in every sense. And then you have that resiliency. So I'll let you carry on from there.
Oh, yeah. Well, how would one start to learn? What would you teach people when you're teaching a couple, say, nonviolent communication? Where does one start with that?
In the work itself, it's usually moment by moment. Like an example comes up when a person says to the partner, the husband or wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, something that's either mildly or very strongly dismissive or diminishing. You never listen to me. That's just an example. You never listen to me. Instead of saying, I feel like right now you're not hearing what I'm trying to say. I feel like you're not hearing what I'm trying to say. So you want to be, there's a lot of little guidelines. One is to be specific in what you say. Like, you don't make general, 2 words that are forbidden are always and never.
Right. Always and never are absolute words.
Right. You never listen to me. You're always late. Then the person's hopeless. Like, okay, it's already been decided. I can't do anything. This person dislikes me and I'm a failure. So why even try? So instead of that kind of language, you say, I was frustrated when you were late today because it was an important meeting. And I was hoping we could make progress on this goal that we have together. So you try to be specific so it doesn't become, you're always late, you're a failure, you don't do the right thing.
Not the kitchen sink. Keep it very specific. And David Alexander, we have to close part 2. And I have to say that this time has flown by for me. I hope you come back. Will you please come back to Just Relationships?
Yes. And you asked me in a very nonviolent, inviting way.
And just such a huge challenge around, because conflict is caused by unmet needs, and for a person to identify what they need, and instead of saying, you're not giving me what I need, just to state, I need this. It's important to me from you, and put it in the form of a request, not a demand.
Can I add one thing quickly?
Yes.
Sometimes the other person won't hear you. It's okay to be insistent on it as long as it stays nonviolent.
Okay.
I still feel you're not hearing me. I still feel that. Can you listen to me? I really want to be heard. So you can repeat it. You can raise your volume a little bit. As long as it's not an attack of the other person, it's okay.
Beautiful. That's very, very important. Mm-hmm. So thank you, David Alexander. insightsandenergy.com, your ebook, Escaping from Freedom. Fabulous. Please, everyone, give yourself a chance to read this free, brilliant treatise.
It's on the website. You can get it there.
Yes, insightsandenergy.com. Thank you again, David, so much.
Thank
and
you.
You're very, very welcome. And this is Dr. Duffy Spencer saying goodbye for now and wishing you great relationships.